My ex-fiance cheated on me with my cousin, and now my family wants me to forgive him because he's sick with cancer. I'm 27 and don't have any siblings, but I have a cousin named Kevin. He's 2 years younger than me, and we literally grew up together. I spent a lot of time with my dad's side of the family as my mom is deceased and my dad never remarried because of his health issues. I was there with Kevin most of the time and we did everything together. I've always been very close with my grandparents as well, so I was very comfortable being there. When I was engaged to my ex-fiance, I used to bring her over to my grandparents' house most of the time. Her, me, and Kevin would spend our time doing things together. I noticed Kevin would try to take part in personal conversations and try to tag along whenever we went out for dinner. I set some boundaries, but he just kept stomping over them. He tried to pick fights with me and claim I'm forgetting about him and prioritizing my ex over him, and I didn't know how to deal with this, so I kept my distance. In about 2 months, I found out from my aunt about Kevin constantly meeting up with my ex, and she told me that she was worried something was going on between Kevin and my ex-fiance, and she was right. Turns out, my ex and Kevin got together while I was being kept in the dark while I was planning our wedding and handing out invitations. I felt like an absolute idiot. I couldn't handle my anger and I stopped everything and cut contact with Kevin and the family, except my dad because he needed me. I heard that Kevin was in and out of the hospital, but I didn't know why. That was until my aunt reached out to me telling me that Kevin has liver cancer and wasn't handling it well. I drove my dad to visit him once and saw my ex, who's now his girlfriend, there, and I left right away. I kept my distance, and recently I started getting calls from the family members asking, "Did you hear about Kevin?" and telling me the same story. My grandmother called me wanting to arrange for a family dinner on Christmas, and because Kevin got out of the hospital, they wanted me to come home hoping that I solved my issues with him, seeing that I may not be able to do it later. However, I refused. She told me that I needed to have some empathy and let go of the past because what happened to him was enough for me to let it go. They started pressuring me from all sides. I told my grandparents that I won't sit with my ex-fiance and the person who wronged me at the same table and pretend to be a happy family. They replied that I was resentful, that he's my cousin no matter what happens. It's the same people who allowed my ex into their house after what she did and sided with Kevin and said that they only allowed my ex into the house for Kevin's sake. Now they demand that I get right with him because he clearly deserves more sympathy than I do. I'm deeply hurt and I can't imagine sitting at the same table with the people who hurt me the most. What should I do at this point? I think everyone is being unfair and refusing or just ignoring what Kevin did to me.
Am I the asshole for telling my sister that her wedding will never be that important to me? My sister is getting married and I am a bridesmaid. The dresses she picked for the bridesmaids were a shade of light orange and pink tones. I'm not a fan of pink at all, but it's a dress. I can handle it. As usual in every wedding, if you're a bridesmaid, you are expected to pay for the dress. The dress costs $150. That already for me is a huge sacrifice, paying $150 for a dress I'll never wear again. I have some visible hand and arm tattoos. I have a back tattoo, which will be visible because the dress is backless, and my hair is brown with some pink highlights. My sister demands that I dye my hair brown and get rid of the pink highlights. She also demands I cover my tattoos with body makeup because she wouldn't like me having pink hair and tattoos in the wedding pictures, and that the bridesmaids are supposed to look classy, and if I have pink hair and tattoos visible, people will focus more on my crazy style than the bride and groom. I told her I'm not doing any of that. The conversation went like this. The bride? What do you mean you're not? You bought a dress you hated and you have an objection on temporarily hiding your tattoos and dyeing your hair? It's not like you can't dye your highlights back after the wedding is over. Try to understand where I'm coming from. Me. You knew I had dyed my hair and tattoos when you asked me to be a bridesmaid. This is how I love myself, and it's insulting how you expect me to change myself like this so you can have your picture perfect wedding. I bought the dress because it's a dress. You expect me to be someone else for the day. This is how I am and how I've been for years. Why are you suddenly surprised? The bride? I didn't think my own sister would throw a tantrum over fucking tattoos and fucking hair. It's my wedding, so yes, I want it to be perfect. And either you can go with it, or you're out of the bridal party. Me. I'm out then. Your wedding is not that important to me to lead me to a point of changing myself. Either you accept me like this, or you don't. Don't expect me to change because you're scared of not having a classy wedding because of me. Blessings. Since then, my parents and brother have called me and cursed me out for not honoring my sister's wishes. Am I the asshole? My husband beat cancer and now he's giving up on our marriage. It's been 6 months since my 21 female husband, 21 male, had a stem cell transplant. This was in conjunction with chemotherapy to help him improve his quality of life if the chemo worked as a treatment. He had metastatic brain cancer in his bones and his chances weren't good. He still has to worry about the cancer coming back in the future, but the treatment did work and now he's back to normal life. Except nothing has been normal. He's been depressed ever since he got home from the transplant. I've tried to talk to him about it, showing my support. I talked to his family, basically just telling them he feels burnt out and asking them if they can reach out more. I've tried to handle a lot of my own struggles on my own. I have clinical depression and now I'm recovering from pushing that aside to be his caregiver for 2 years. I'm in counseling and I'm still work full time. This past week he told me he's thinking about it for a few weeks and he doesn't think he can do it anymore. This being our marriage. He says I always take my anger out on him, and the past year has been all about me. I took a few deep breaths, and then told him that's hard to believe since in the past year all I've done is work, and use all my vacation days on being there for his treatments. This summer, we used all our extra money on getting him his dream motorcycle and all the accessories to go with it. We had a plan on getting me one too, but it ended up being too expensive, so we agreed on him doing the motorcycle course and getting a bike himself. I've been focused on my therapy and healing. I've been going to work every day. I also got basically ghosted by my best friend after she got married this summer. I've had repressed memories and childhood traumas come up in the last month that I've been working through basically on my own. My husband knows, but we've had a total of 2 conversations about it, and when I try to bring it up, he makes a conversation about something unrelated. I said I wanted to go to marriage counseling since he's refusing to see his own therapist or counselor for the last 3 years. He finally got himself a counselor instead, and I feel like it's too late for that. After he told me this week that he thought our relationship was over, I snapped. I told him that if he was going to give up, that I wasn't going to shut up about the pain that I'm dealing with anymore. I am always forced to be quiet to listen to him talk about what he's going through, and I've done it happily for our entire marriage. And to hear him say those things felt like an ultimate betrayal. Now he wants to take it back. He says he should have never said that, and he wants me to give him time to work with his counselor and heal. But I still think the problem isn't addressed. He thinks the last year had been about me, when our entire marriage has been about him. And he never acknowledged that. He refuses to talk about his treatment and the things that we were together for, but he makes jokes about his own funeral even though it makes me cry. Does anyone have any advice? I think he's given up, and to know that he's verbalized it, part of me would just
Storytime about how my husband accidentally told me that he was cheating on me. So just some background information. My husband and I got engaged 2 years ago, and this whole situation happened a month after we got married. So fast forward, it's a Sunday morning. Well, usually every week on Sunday, I clean the whole house. So I woke up, went into the bathroom to take my ring off, and I could not get it off. Mind you, I had gained a little bit of weight since my husband and I got engaged. Anyways, I tried butter, I tried soap, I tried everything, even oil. So after trying to get it off for an hour straight, my finger was 3 times bigger than it usually is. So at this point, I'm really scared that I'm going to have to get it cut off. Because 1, I didn't want to ruin it, and 2, it was really expensive. So I call my husband and he's like, "Oh, call your dad. Firefighters always know what to do." So I called my dad, and thank God he lived 5 minutes away because he drove over really quickly. Like for part 2. Part 2 of how my husband accidentally told me that he was cheating on me. So like I said, my dad lived 5 minutes away, so he just rushed over to my house. And we tried a few more things to get it off. We tried Windex, we tried the dental floss, none of it was working. So my dad told me that we were going to have to cut it off with pliers. So he comes over with the pliers, cuts the ring off. Well, a few days later, I had taken it to the same place that we got it to get the band fixed. Or replaced. While I was there, I decided to get it appraised, just for insurance reasons. So a few days later, I go and pick up my ring, and when I get home, I look at the appraisal. It was not the same one that I had picked out in the store. It looked exactly like it, but there was like a $20,000 price difference. So right now, I'm like, what the fuck? I'm not mad about the money part. I'm more mad that my husband lied to me. I was more upset about the fact that he had lied to me. So I had made dinner reservations for the next night, so that way I could hopefully bring up the conversation about it, like for part 3. Part 3 of how my husband accidentally told me that he was cheating on me. So like I said, I had made reservations for him and I to go out to dinner so that way I could hopefully spark up the conversation about it. So when we finally sat down, I had started up the conversation. I had told him that when I took my ring in to get it fixed, I also got it appraised. And his face immediately changed after that, but he wasn't saying anything. He was like, "Oh, okay, how did that go?" So at this point, I was tired of beating around the bush, and I was like, "Why wouldn't you just tell me if we were having money troubles?" And he was like, "What do you mean? We're not having any money troubles. I'm fine." One thing about my husband is that he is very wealthy, and he takes pride in the fact that he is very wealthy. So obviously, me right there kind of questioning his wealth, he fucked up and told me the truth. He was like, "Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. I accidentally gave the ring that I was supposed to give you to a girl I was seeing at the time, and I just never got around to replacing yours." So fast forward to present day, I am currently moving all of my stuff out of our house and filing for divorce.
I'm gonna tell you guys why I don't keep food in my room anymore. At least why I don't keep this particular food in my room anymore. So when I was a kid, my dad used to leave the country a lot. Every time he would come back, he'd always bring us some sort of goodie. It'd always be like bracelets, t-shirts, and candy. One time after a trip to, I think it was Dominican Republic, brought us back a bunch of lollipops. These are not normal lollipops like you're thinking in your head. These are these giant brown flat lollipops. Now, instead of eating them, me and my sister decided it would be best to hoard them. Yes, that's right, keep them in our room for as long as possible. For what purpose? I don't know. I think it was probably like, no, we can't eat them now. If something happens and we need them.
Bruh. It's not every day that we got candy, apparently. So we kept them in our room. We kind of put them on display, up against the wall, right in between both of our beds, in this very room. This time I was about 6? My sister's about a year and a half older than me, so she was like 7, I guess. Now, these lollipops were given to both of us. They were displayed equally distanced between both of our beds, because they belonged to us both. I'm not really sure how this happened. But one night, me and my sister went to bed, but then my sister started tossing and turning. Calls out for my mom. My mom comes and she's like, what's wrong? Oh my god, this is part 2 of why I don't keep food in my room anymore. So my mom came into our room. She asked my sister, hey, what's wrong? She was like, oh, my body, I'm itchy. Mom's like, oh, maybe there's a mosquito. My sister's like, no, it's all over. She moves my sister out of the bed. Maybe it's your bed. She looks at her blanket. Oh my gosh, there's ants here. She shakes the blanket. Ants crawl everywhere. Under her pillow, ants. She lifts the mattress. Guys, her bed was infested with ants. Why? There was the faintest trail leading to our lollipops. My mom's like, hey, you get out of the bed. So I got out of bed, they checked my bed, was completely clean. There was one measly ant, literally one, one. My bed had no issues. Sister could not sleep there. So they ended up throwing our lollipops away and we were devastated. And my sister got a lot of unnecessary ant bites and I didn't get any. It's okay, because every time we go outside, I get swarmed with mosquitoes and she doesn't get bit at all.
Story time about my psychotic best friend. So we're gonna call this girl Gia. So a little background information. This all happened whenever I was in 9th grade. I saw Gia sitting at this lunch table alone and I invited her to come sit with my friends and I. And after talking to her, I found out that she was a new student and she didn't have any friends. So her and I started hanging out and we became really close. Like she would come over my house 24/7. Well, my older sister was a grade above us and she would act really weird around her. And by weird, I mean like she would always make fun of me in front of my sister. And weirdly enough, try to cause problems between us. My sister didn't really like her. She thought that she was weird. But because she was my friend, she was being super nice to her. Well, like a month later, she started trying to become best friends with my sister. Like any conversation she would have, I would be like, oh, do you want to come over? She would be like, no, sorry, I'm hanging out with your sister today. And I would go home and I would be like, hey, are you hanging out with Gia today? And my sister would be like, what the hell are you talking about? Like for part 2. Part 2 about my psychotic best friend. So like I said, my sister was like, no